Audience members, 1, 2, and me.
Touch me.
I remember the first school I went to where you had an option of eating at a snack bar instead of the cafeteria. I was in the 8th grade, and every day that year I had a Coke, French fries, and a candy bar. I was in heaven. Of course, that was also the year that I went from being chunky to actually being overweight. And I can't help but wonder if I had not had the option of those unhealthy foods, if my weight problem would have gotten as bad as it did. Today's children have an even tougher time because due to convenience, budget cuts, and society's acceptance of the fast food mentality, many elementary school lunches are full of overly processed, high-fat, low-nutrition foods. A CDC study reports that from 1980 to present, the 6 to 11-year-olds that are obese has doubled, and in adolescence, it's tripled. Consider that most children receive more than half of their daily caloric intake from school breakfast and lunch programs, and it's clear to see that the federal government should require the National School Lunch Program to reduce prepackaged processed foods in their lunches. Now, the National School Lunch Program was developed in 1946 as a response to the problem of recruits not being able to pass the physical examinations to get into World War II for the military. And so the CDC, in conjunction with the Department of Agriculture, who at the time had a food surplus because the economy was so poor, they took those food commodities and through the NSLD funneled them into the schools for reduced and free lunches. At the time, these commodities were whole foods, real chicken, real cheese and meat, and the cafeteria ladies cooked from scratch hot lunches. Now, we all know that the government agencies change slowly, and so over the years, while the NSLD has changed, it has not kept up with the times. The NSLD uses the My Pyramid food guidelines for creating their school menus. And the My Pyramid has changed over the years in keeping with the new scientific studies concerning nutrition and population trends and things like that. But the NSLD is still using the food guidelines from 1992. Now the problem with that was that in 1992, the obesity rates were not as high, and the next problem that we're going to talk about was just beginning to emerge, and that problem is food processing. Now, Americans, we like things quick. We are in a hurry and we're busy, and somewhere along the line, the food industry decided that they would help us all out by taking this, which has to be cooked, seasoned, and sliced to put on a chicken sandwich, to this, which you can just take out of the package, slap on the white bread, and get in the car and go. Now this is significant because according to Mayo Clinic nutritionist Catherine Zetsky, there is a potential link between the amount of processed foods Americans eat and obesity. A survey by the School Nutrition Association found that 80% of schools prepare less than 1/2 of their entrees from scratch, and 40% of schools prepare less than 1/4 from scratch. You remember those commodities we were talking about? Well, school districts discovered a great way to save money. They took those commodities of chicken, flour, and cheese, and they sent them first to a processor. Now the processor turned those whole good foods into chicken nuggets, pre-made white flour rolls, and pizza. Now this saved time and money because it doesn't take very many people to put frozen pizza in the oven and then put it out on the plate, nor does it take much equipment. All you need is a freezer and an oven. And so the schools were happy because they were saving money, and the children were happy because they love frozen pizza, so everything was great. Except that it wasn't. This food is poor in nutrition and high in fat, and it's hurting our children's bodies and minds. A 2000 report from the CDC published in the Journal of American Medicine stated that 400,000 deaths every year occur from obesity and diseases linked to obesity. The CDC states that soon obesity will overtake smoking as the #1 cause of preventable death of Americans. So we need to do something about this. When we consider how much food the children consume at school, it's not a stretch to say that the National School Lunch Program's meals are killing many of our children, because those habits that they develop in childhood carry on to adulthood. But it doesn't have to be this way. There are solutions, and while they're going to be dramatic at first, they will benefit our children for a lifetime. The first thing we need to do is that the the federal government needs to insist that the NSLD keep the commodity foods as whole foods, that the majority of them do not go and become processed garbage for our kids to eat. Next, the NSLP guidelines need to be updated according to new nutritional standards and keeping the obesity problem in mind. And finally, school districts need to stop catering to exactly what the kids want and spend their time educating the children in proper nutrition. Most school districts complain that if they make food from scratch, the children simply won't eat them. But if food is presented attractively, children are educated about nutrition, and children are simply not given the option of vending machine junk and other unhealthy options, I think we would be surprised at what kids would eat. So along that, I want to conduct a little experiment. I have a typical 11-year-old, Dustin, who's going to come up. Now this is, come on Dustin, now this is a meal made with whole wheat flour tortillas, a whole chicken breast that's seasoned with some low-fat cheese, whole corn, carrots, and an apple. This is a low-fat, high-nutrition, good meal. Now, Dustin, would you eat this meal?
Yes, I would.
Is there anything on here that you would not maybe eat?
The carrots.
Would you eat some of the carrots or none at all?
No.
None at all. Okay, but you would eat the apple.
I would eat the apple.
Okay, so we've done a pretty good job right there of getting some good food into this child. But watch what happens when we do this. Now, Dustin, what if I gave you the choice, and this is a typical elementary school meal. What if I gave you the choice of having this meal? Which one would you rather have?
This one.
Okay. Is there anything on here that you would not eat?
I would not eat the fruit stuff.
You wouldn't eat the fruit stuff. Now this is interesting because this is a fruit cocktail packed in heavy syrup, which is what the school districts generally use. At one time this was commodity whole fruit that was very good for you, but they've made it into junk food essentially. Do you want to take this?
Yes,
okay, he's going to take this and go. All right. So clearly we can see that it would take effort and sacrifice in order to change the standards, but the effort and sacrifice would be worth it. If we would cause the federal government to update NSLD standards concerning the amount of processed food that's used in school lunches, and then update the NSLD standards to reflect current nutrition trends, we can help our children to have healthier habits for an entire lifetime.